Warning, on this episode, we're going to be discussing nudity and bodies, including anatomically correct names for mammalian body parts.
Sorry, not sorry. Now to the episode.
One of the things that quickly became apparent to me was that I was astonished how quickly I lost track of which bodies were the ones that were supposed to be beautiful.
I'm naked. Evan is in the tent. I see his shoes coming out. I don't know if he's also getting naked.
Hey, I'm Evan Clark.
And I'm Seráh Blaine.
And welcome to episode 4 of the Humanist Experience. We're the podcast series where we seek out radical experiences that educate our emotions and expand our world.
On this episode, we'll be looking at body shame and the body in culture. This is a weird thing, Evan, laying naked in a tent with microphones. Telling the microphones about the nakedness.
This is our life now.
We will be taking on these topics through the lens of our recent experience camping at a naturist resort.
For those of you
Welcome
at home,
to our life.
We are in our tent.
Mm-hmm.
We have our separate mats, and we're laying on top of our sleeping bags with the open air tent. So we're staring at the sky.
So if you're hearing the tent blow.
Yeah, that should be the tent sounds.
Yeah.
But
and there's a tree over us that's dropping pollen in our face.
It's like naked philosophy. This should be a thing.
It really is. Yes.
Naked camping was not my idea.
No, it was mine. Camping is never an Evan idea.
But it started with an idea that we go to a nude beach and explore a subculture that we found interesting, the naturist community.
Yeah, we wondered about people who like to socialize naked, why they're so free of the anxieties that most of us have about our naked bodies.
Naturist is basically a synonym with nudist.
That's Felicity Jones. She is the co-founder of the Young Naturists of America. That's a nudist community and advocacy organization.
Certain people have different definitions of them, but we define a naturist as someone who likes to be naked in social situations, but they also have a philosophy behind it. There are certain values of acceptance and respect and taking care of the environment and so forth. And we also like to use the word nudity, which to us is like someone who belongs to our community and believes in our ideals and values.
Naturist groups all over the country sponsor all kinds of naked social events, from naked bowling to naked parties to naked hikes and naked camping trips.
But we quickly learned that naturism isn't just an underground society of people who like to do things naked. As Felicity said, it's community with ideals and values.
In fact, naturism could really be described as a movement aimed at combating social divisions between people and eliminating shame about the body.
As soon as a person is able to be comfortable enough taking off their clothes socially, with others who are also naked, then the additional social issues that we are navigating regarding beauty hierarchy, regarding social class, regarding gender expression, often those fall away because clothes are what that's the big thing we're using to solidify all of those things.
We interviewed Kimberly Dark. She's an author, storyteller, and sociologist who takes on the complex issues of today, like gender, race, sexuality, and lucky for us, the body and culture.
We reached out to Kimberly before Evan persuaded me that he really, really wanted to go camping.
Could have gone swimming.
He wanted to go camping.
Could have gone on a hike.
He bought a tent. He bought a sleeping bag.
Whatever, let's carry on.
We reached out to Kimberly to ask about the body and culture and taboos around nudity. We wanted to know how to interact constructively with the cultural messages that something, and in some cases, everything, is wrong with what we look like naked.
And Kimberly, being a storyteller, told us this story.
I can remember one of the first times that I was in a very large group of naked women, and that was at a bathhouse in Hungary, in Budapest. And, this is a common practice in a lot of countries, right? That you take off your clothes and you get in these public baths. And they're gender segregated. So this was the women's side, but it was hundreds. I mean, this was a large bathhouse. And one of the things that quickly became apparent to me was that I was astonished how quickly I lost track of which bodies were the ones that were supposed to be beautiful and which ones were, if we were outside of that environment, would receive scorn or ridicule. I mean, it was astonishing to me how quickly my ability to even judge that fell away. And of course I could call it up. Of course I could, bring on the analytical self that would say, yes, those are terribly symmetrical breasts right there, and look how youthful that person is, and look how, this and that. But the fact is, it becomes clear very quickly that bodies have their own internal sense of logic to them, and that people move in ways that are interesting and look diverse in ways that are both interesting and also organically beautiful. It's hard to remember, what was the problem with these bodies?
Kimberly's story describes how her exposure to body diversity shifted her perception of beauty. But so much of the nudity we see in porn and other media, it isn't diverse. It celebrates women who have a very narrow range of appearance traits.
We aren't exposed to a full variety of naked bodies, so our ideas about what's normal or beautiful, they become distorted, and certain bodies become privileged in our culture, while most bodies are denigrated.
Felicity told us that because of this lack of body diversity in sex education, in porn, in other media, many people have concerns about their bodies. They wonder if they're different, whether they look weird naked, even whether their genitals are normal.
People are afraid to talk about it, and that kind of goes along with the sexual shame that we have in America, and the big lack of quality sex education, and the worry about my genitals aren't normal. It's a big part of the body shame aspect, and they don't realize how incredibly varied they are. Really, your genitals are unique as your face.
So the naturist movement strives to serve as an antidote to harmful cultural messages about the body, and to provide experiences that correct our misconceptions.
When people go to a nude event or a nudist resort, it's a revelation. It's wow, nobody looks the same. Everybody actually has these unique imperfections or flaws, and I'm okay the way I look.
That's exactly the kind of revelation I was hoping for, because I have a lot of anxieties about my body. I have a balance disorder that's kept me in bed or in a wheelchair off and on for more than 2 years. So despite being thin, I'm not at all toned, and pregnancy and childbirth have left their marks. The naked women that I've seen in porn or on Showtime, they are not out of shape 36-year-olds. They're not in wheelchairs, and they do not have stretch marks.
In contrast, I feel like I have less anxieties. I'm a tall 27-year-old male who I really generally think I have the body type I see most in mass media. I don't have a constant six-pack, and I don't have giant triceps, but I'm in decent shape, and I still identify as an athlete. But the reason I struggle with my body image is because I desperately want people to still see me as an athlete. The idea of being seen naked and having anything other than an athletic build, it terrifies me.
And we felt pretty weird about seeing each other naked, too. Nudity in our culture is usually very sexualized, and it's not something you share with a coworker, unless you're sleeping together.
Spoiler alert, we're not sleeping together.
Nope. Despite being business partners and roommates for almost 2 years, we had never seen each other naked.
But we also understood that our anxieties about body image were irrational. And our social conditioning about who we should feel comfortable seeing naked, it wasn't supported by facts or reason. So we wanted to challenge it, hoping to align our emotions with our thinking.
You know, most people I've ever spoken to that have nudist experiences find that that's true, that there's a lot of anxiety up front, and then they're amazed at how quickly, a whole number of social anxieties drop away because we're not navigating the clothing that signify them, if that makes sense.
So to confront these anxieties and learn more about how naturism works to promote body positivity, we decided to go camping at a naturist resort.
Seráh decided to go camping.
I decided to go
I wanted
camping.
to go to a nude beach.
Fair. I decided we should spend a couple of days with people who have fully adopted the naturist lifestyle rather than just being observers for an afternoon at the beach.
Fine. All right. And what better way to do that than a weekend of camping at a naturist resort? All right, this is our night attempt to set up our giant tent. I'm going to put the mic there.
Nice. We made it. We arrived at Shangri-La Ranch around 10 p.m. on a Friday night.
Shangri-La is a clothing-optional resort in central Arizona. Their website emphasizes its family-friendly atmosphere and reassures guests that they're welcome to ease into the nude environment at their own pace.
We definitely needed to ease in at our own pace.
When we got there, things were winding down for the night. The office was closed, naked karaoke was just ending, and a few stragglers were playing naked pool in the recreation room.
Naked.
Well, not everyone was naked. And as we walked around looking for our tent site, most of the people we ran into, they were clothed. But this was probably because it was the end of summer, and the desert nights in Arizona, they're pretty chilly.
We definitely didn't take our clothes off right away either.
No, we were planning on easing into the experience.
At our own pace. So we set up the tent, got inside, and started trying to figure out how we were going to navigate these new norms of the naturist community and how we were going to navigate each other.
So how are we doing this tomorrow? What's the setup?
Well, I mean, like, I feel like I want to talk to the office people before anything, because I just don't know anything.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I'd like to pay.
But they're not open till 9. Well, and I don't know what time other people get up too.
Was it like a big reveal at 9? Come out from opposite sides of the tent.
Well, is it still going to be cold at 9? And is the pool heated? I don't know. I
think the pool's heated.
One thing was clear. It was going to be awkward.
Yes, anytime I go camping, it's really awkward.
Not anytime. We've been camping plenty of times since then, and Evan has gotten pretty good at it. But at this point, it was not something he was familiar with.
So in addition to wondering about what we were going to do about being naked, I was also just wondering about what we were going to do. Like, what do people do when they're camping?
Are you on their website right now?
I am.
Do they have, like, planned activities?
No. It just says, emphasizes freedom of choice. You select the activity that suits you, from quiet relaxation in a spa, sauna, or on the pool deck, to swimming, volleyball, water volleyball, tennis, basketball, horseshoes, or hiking trails.
I feel like we should just walk around naked tomorrow.
Yeah, figure things out.
I've got cowboy boots. It's really all you need.
Yeah, I think that's just how you do it here. You just wear whatever you want and then act like
Well, I know, but if we wear whatever we want, we're going to wear clothes the whole weekend.
Okay, well, what I mean...
We finally decided to go to sleep, unsure about the norms for the community and at what point we were going to feel comfortable taking off our clothes.
I actually took mine off in my sleeping bag before I went to bed.
Well, I wasn't that cool. I slept in my clothes.
So you were probably warmer?
Yeah.
Haha, you see what I did there? Cool, warmer. Anyway, in the morning, I woke up still naked before Evan, and I needed to run to the bathroom. So I decided, what the hell? I slipped into my cowboy boots, very quietly unzipped the tent, then stepped into the brisk desert morning with the sun rising and the birds singing, and the breeze actually felt really nice on my skin.
In her birthday suit.
No one was awake yet, as far as I could tell, so I didn't feel self-conscious.
Apparently I slept through this big reveal, and by the time I decided to take my clothes off, Seráh was already outside, cooking breakfast in the buff. As I got undressed to leave the tent, rather than dressed, it definitely hit me how strange this experience feels as a newbie. But I rationally knew that the only reason this is weird is because society tells me this is weird. So I quickly ripped off the Band-Aid, which is an apt metaphor for my clothes, and finally jumped out of the tent.
We're cooking breakfast. I'm naked. Evan is in the tent. I see his shoes coming out. I don't know if he's also getting naked. But I'm making beanies and weenies for breakfast. It's very hot by the stove, so it's actually kind of nice to be clothingless. But I do have to admit it's very weird. Got some vegan hot dogs that we're frying up with baked beans for breakfast here.
Once we were both naked, it was more just peculiar and funny than horrifying or embarrassing. And we dealt with the awkwardness by making fun of ourselves.
And sending silly photos of ourselves with strategically placed props to our consulting firm's graphic designer.
This whole thing is hilarious.
Our life is hilarious.
It's a very strange life.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So we're naked. We're cooking. I just sent a picture of my vegan wiener to Gustavo.
Other than the fact that we were naked, our morning started out much like it would in any other campground.
Couples, families, and individuals, they walked past and said good morning. People sat at picnic tables outside their RVs. They were drinking coffee. They were eating breakfast.
And of course we noticed that they were naked, but as the novelty wore off, it also became easy to forget.
It was actually easier to forget that other people were naked than that we ourselves were. For one thing, being naked actually feels physically different than having everything wrapped in fabric.
And also, we were in the process of training our brains that non-sexual nudity was completely acceptable between heterosexual men and women who are friends.
And we had to openly discuss and touch body parts that are usually taboo in public or around coworkers. It challenged our emotions around roles that never served us in the first place. Are we still recording? Yes. So I'm going to have to put sunblock on my penis today. I've never done that before.
I wonder, should we buy the lotion kind? I don't know.
Do we have? Oh, I actually think I have normal sunblock with me.
Okay.
It's like SPF 85.
Is it, how weird is it to like rub penis
well,
penis with lotion? Rub lotion onto your penis.
I'm pretty confident I can get through it. The key is not to have any other stimulus while doing it.
There's only one reason you do that.
No, I have to say we play with our junk a lot, generally. So.
But do you moisturize your junk?
But moisturize, no. You're right. I don't. Like, good morning, Evan. But this morning wood needs a little moisture.
Right.
We finished up breakfast, Googled whether nipples can get sunburned.
They can.
And we put sunblock on everything. Then we went for a walk around the resort.
Shangri-La isn't just a vacation destination. It's also a community with full-time residents of all ages, from families raising children to retirees.
It's a hodgepodge of apartments, manufactured homes, and RVs interspersed around a common recreation area that includes multiple pools, a cafe, a clubhouse, and tennis courts.
The resort is more than 50 years old, and as we walked around the clubhouse, we saw framed photos on the walls of families who didn't look much different than the Cleavers in Leave It to Beaver.
That's a TV show from the 1950s for you millennials who don't know.
Thank you. Except everyone's naked in the photos.
As we followed the road that looped around the resort, we saw people doing all the things you'd expect in any other community, chatting with neighbors, starting yard work, heading out for work.
And yes, most people were naked. But a few were in bathrobes until the day started to heat up. And of course, lots of folks that were heading to work, they were dressed.
By the time we finished our walk, the day began to get hot. Vacationers from Phoenix were beginning to arrive, and people were starting to congregate at the pool.
So we walked back to our campsite, refilled our water, grabbed some snacks, and did a quick check-in.
So is the anxiety going down around all of this?
Yeah, no, it's just weird. No, it was funny. When I woke up this morning, I was fine. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to get up and just do it because I don't want it to, turn into a thing.
Right.
And we talked about how strange it was that the social rules around nakedness had abruptly changed for us. The previous day, it felt inappropriate to be naked around each other, whereas in the naturist environment, the cultural norm was nudity.
We would have been out of place with our clothes on. The social rules around when we wear clothes and when we don't, they were starting to seem completely arbitrary.
God, it was funny. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. We were still at the condo and I took a shower.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was so dumb. I kept forgetting shit. I didn't have my towel. So I got redressed to go out to get the towel. And then I forgot something else. So then I wrapped up in the towel to go out and get whatever the other thing was. And it's tomorrow we're going to be sitting around naked. Why am I spending 20 minutes?
Well, and
it would not have been the end of the world if you'd seen a flash of me running.
No, yeah. But it's also because there's so many expectations around it. Well, and also because the norms are so on one side.
And this was one of the things Kimberly Dark had emphasized when she talked to us about culture. That sometimes the way social roles and rules are constructed is absurd, but that we can make and remake new ones.
We can make small changes in how we relate to the body and culture that affect others and ultimately affect the culture we live in. So, because literally there's no part of human culture that was not created by humans. We're in the act of creating it all the time.
We can change our social norms when the old ones don't serve us. And in fact, when cultural constraints hurt people, we have a moral obligation to reshape culture.
But in the immediacy, we are going to start by reshaping the water volleyball game.
That's an amazing segue.
The bell rang announcing the first match, so we both grabbed towels and headed over to the pool.
Inside the recreation area, there was a large main pool with a few families playing. The deck had maybe 150 lounge chairs and about a third of them in use.
We laid our towels on shaded chairs under a giant canopy, and just beyond the canopy was the water volleyball pool, and it was packed. There were 9 players on each side, with a handful of people hanging on to the outside of the pool.
While the average age probably skewed toward 50 or 60, there were also men and women in their 20s and 30s. The age diversity and balance between the biological sexes at the pool stood out to us, and all shapes and sizes of bodies were represented. And it was clear from the total lack of tan lines that we were pretty much the only first-time nudists.
But luckily, I'm not a first-time volleyball player.
Another great segue.
So I jumped in for a few games while Seráh sat and playfully heckled from the sidelines.
I do love to heckle. I watched the game for a bit before noticing a group of people hanging around a table in the shade playing dice. By this time, I had completely forgotten to notice that everyone was naked, and I just walked over and introduced myself and asked about the game. I wasn't judging their bodies or thinking about my own. I just enjoyed learning a new game, sharing a drink, and meeting new people.
And after a few hours, as things wound down in the pool area, we went back to our campsite and did what most people do after a long day in the summer sun.
Siesta!
We took a nap. We also spent some time talking about our observations and experiences from the afternoon at the pool.
The first thing that struck both of us was how much variety there can be in terms of bodies.
There really is all types of bodies here, though.
All of the bodies, yes. And it's so funny how clothes are so similar. Like, we feel like there's a wide variety of clothing because there's different, styles and colors and whatever, but they really attempt to shape bodies in a very, very similar way, and mask them in a very similar way. And I think that you wouldn't be able to imagine the variety of bodies based on the variety of clothes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, clothes make us look more similar.
Yeah, they really do. I think bodies are a lot more unique. Like Kimberly had observed in her story about visiting a Hungarian bathhouse, we noticed that bodies do seem to have their own unique sense of logic to them.
And outside of an environment that privileges certain kinds of physical beauty over others, people seem pretty happy and comfortable with their bodies.
The other thing that was really revelatory for us was how sexual most nudity is in our experiences outside the naturist environment.
That has been one of the more interesting parts, though, recognizing how much nakedness is sexualized.
Yes.
And how totally unnecessary that is 99% of the time.
Yeah. I can't see that as anything but damaging.
Because it holds back, I feel like, friendships or trying new things.
Felicity explained that this lack of sexualization in the naturist community is part of what makes it a very feminist environment.
A lot of times there's this sexist dynamic in the media where women are naked because for the male gaze and men are clothed and asserting power and they're the ones who are they're the ones with the more power, and women are just objects to look at, and naturism totally flips that around.
We felt like naturism flipped a lot of things around. Our concepts about nudity, taboos, gender dynamics, and beauty privilege had very quickly turned sideways.
It fascinated us how changing one factor, normalizing nudity rather than wearing clothes, created an entirely different culture.
And our brief participation in that culture allowed us to update our emotions, to align more with our humanist values of feminism, equality, and body positivity, at least while we remained within the naturist community.
As the sun set, we heard music blaring from the clubhouse, and we continued our discussion while heading there for the Saturday evening dance party.
So, there are bodies here that could be sexually attractive if they were being sexual. If this, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they're so it's just utility. I'm surprised how easy it is not to sexualize people.
Yeah. Well, and I've really just adjusted my norms. It's amazing how you just accept a new... This is the way the world works now.
Yeah.
As long as we're here, this is the way it works.
But we weren't always going to be there. We were going back to a world where things worked differently, where we do privilege certain appearance traits and shame others, where we do sexualize nudity and modify female bodies for the male gaze.
We were going back to a world where clothes are used to signify gender and class, and to shape bodies to align with an ideal standard, where my missing six-pack and Seráh's stretch marks, they make us inadequate to meet that standard.
And later, at the late-night campfire, we spoke to the people living at Shangri-La who were rejecting that world. They saw our cultural norms around the body as damaging, so they created their own culture.
My opinion on this, everybody that is inside these gates, everybody that comes here, everybody that lives here, we are the normal people. Everybody outside those gates are the ones screwing up the world.
To a certain extent, we agreed. Outside the gates of the naturist community, we all participate in perpetuating standards about beauty and taboos about nudity that cause harm.
But we were learning that it really is possible to have experiences that shift our perception and hopefully our behavior.
We did not become nudists after our experience, and our concerns about what our bodies look like, they didn't magically melt away.
But neither of us go to ridiculous lengths anymore to cover up in front of one another or get redressed when jumping out of the shower to find a towel. We're making small changes in our day-to-day lives.
And we're striving to be more conscious about how we can end our complicity in aspects of our culture that don't align with our reason or our values.
As Kimberly Dark reinforced again and again, our culture is ours. Humans made it, and we can change our own attitudes within it. And then we should take part in positively changing culture itself.
I think the important thing about culture is to realize that it exists within each person, right? The sort of the blueprint for the culture that we were born into exists within us because that's how socialization works. And similarly, each of us is influencing culture. And so the blueprint for the next generation's culture is also being provided by us. We are creating the world even as it creates us. For me, that's a terribly empowering aspect of the depressing things that we learn as sociologists about the world around us. Is that yeah, wow, that stuff is in me, and also I choose what I create next.
If you would like to support the work of the folks you heard in this episode, please visit our website at humanistexperience.com.
Once again, that's humanistexperience.com. That's where you'll find links for storyteller Kimberly Dark,
the Young Naturists of America,
and Shangri-La Ranch.
Special thanks for this episode go to
our Refugee Advocacy Fellow, Gustavo Youngberg,
our guests,
Kimberly Dark,
and Felicity Jones.
The Humanist Experience is produced in collaboration with Unbelievers Media, LLC, Spectrum Experience, and The Skeptic Examiner.
We're your hosts, Evan Clark
and Seráh Blaine, and we'll see you next time.
Don't rock that chair.
I'm just rocking the chair to exercise my shoulders. I'm not going yet. Are we recording?
Yes.
See, you have to give me that information.
1, 3, 2, 1, we're recording.
Hey, I'm Seráh Blaine.